Film a taxi. I have to do it. Okay.
So maybe we should get started.
Yeah, why not?
All
Assuming
right.
that there aren't any more people going to be.
The people on the internet don't know that
Wait,
it's
there's
not
people
full of kids.
actually on the stream?
There's like one person. There's two people and one person said let's glitch this thing.
Hi, people on the stream.
Yeah. Hi, people on the stream.
God damn.
I'm doing a little experiment this time where I'm going to record to my hard drive simultaneously
Oh, yeah.
because porting from YouTube it works, but it's pretty low quality. So we'll see how this version kind of holds up. But anyway, that's beside the point. Welcome to Game of the Month Club. This month we played Inside. I'll host. My name is John Bruneau, and this is my co-host
Pablo Jimenez.
And why did you want to co-host Inside?
Why the hell not?
Okay.
It's a good game.
So I hadn't played it before, but I was a really big fan of Limbo. And I one of my earliest art shows I put together had Limbo in it. So I still have Art Jensen's email, and I was thinking of maybe asking him some questions after playing this.
Yeah.
But let's go through, like, you kind of put like some main topics together. And we'll kind of go to the open forum because I think a lot of this game is super just like trying to figure out what happened. So I think there'll be a lot more discussion there than like the non-spoilery side.
I know, it's like more of a mind F than Inception.
Okay. So what do you want to say about the beginning of this? What did you want to say for this slide?
Well, what I want to say for this slide is just the introduction. It sets up the perfect mood. Like, you're in this mysterious, thickly dense forest, like a really hard to get to place. And already the mood is set off by having, like, barbed wire fences. You have to get through places, masked guards. And already dogs trying to chew you up like they're a little dog toy while people are shooting at you. So, yeah, it's a very hostile environment, and already I want to compare it to the previous game we were talking about, Limbo. Like how some people say that Limbo is kind of the spiritual predecessor to Inside because of the many themes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you all remember that scene where that pig is trying to eat you or trying to ram you?
Yeah.
Remember how you kind of have to like put it into a wall and have it knock itself out in front of the wall? And then you pry out that parasite.
From its butt.
Yeah, from its butt. And it's kind of similar to that parasite that in Limbo, which
the
sucks
mind control. Yeah, the mind control parasite. No, there's like worms kind of coming out of everything. Yeah. Okay, so we're in this decaying black city, right?
Yeah, it's kind of
dystopian, very industrial, old, partially abandoned.
Exactly, and it feels a little Orwellian, being how people are being controlled by this mysterious figure you don't really know much about. I kind of want to say it's maybe somewhere in Eastern Europe because of like, it kind of has that Eastern European style because, you know, these like massive buildings, hardly any inscription, kind of poor and shitty looking, and just, yeah, this very dark world. And I think that, as you pointed out, and we were discussing about it previously, that maybe this isn't even dystopian, it's just an abandoned city, and this science project decided to take over this science city and say, hey, let's make this science project. There's hardly anyone here, let's just take it over.
So it'll be interesting. I want to try to bundle all these, like, what the hell's going on.
Yeah, exactly.
To the end. But yeah, like, so there's different theories on like why there's this sort of like world that seems primarily abandoned, but with just like a couple people.
That it might just be like this perfect remote location, kind of like New Mexico and people using
like Roswell.
Yeah, Roswell, New Mexico, like kind of this abandoned place that nobody will notice. Area 51-ish.
Mm-hmm. I think Playdead Games is like based in Sweden. Is that right? Denmark. So my assumption was that it takes place in Denmark because that's where everybody is working on it. but I could be wrong. I haven't been to Denmark. I don't know if they have like nice wooden
area.
area.
The charm though is that you could just make whatever assumption and just put your whole like background into whatever setting it is. Like it could easily be upstate New York. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, upstate New York gets quite crazy. I've seen crazier stuff.
Yeah, that's me projecting a little bit. I've seen some shit, man.
Bronx ain't got nothing on me.
Whatever place you think is crappy, that's where it is.
Yeah.
You think it's Jersey? Yeah, sure.
Added some toll pikes. It's New Jersey, all right.
Fairy tale because it like the feeling and mood can change very quickly. Like in Limbo, you'll be in a warehouse and then you're like on a farm and then you're like outside and then.
I feel like those locations change, but I don't necessarily feel like the mood changes.
Yeah, maybe the mood doesn't change with the
There's like a couple scenes with sun, and like one is the end, and like there's a little bit in the middle, and there's like some sort of setting on some warehouses, and that's kind of it. Like it's mostly dark and you're mostly inside.
I think a Truman Show just a little bit.
Oh,
It feels like
yeah.
a contained island or a contained world.
I mean,
under the dome.
Yeah, there's definitely like a lot of cameras set up in a lot of spaces where it feels like you're. Oh, you didn't? Yeah, there's a lot like camera lighting and cameras like set up like located on things. So it seems like it could be like partially a studio.
It's also weird that there's so much that's underwater and it seems to go so deep. Like
Yeah.
either the sewers are just insanely spacious or it's very
Yeah, and like a lot of stuff that looks abandoned, like it was previously a used room or like a research facility or like a hospital, and you just keep going through these layers, and all these are filled up with water.
I still don't even know what the sound wave section is.
Well, I mean, take this interpretation. If you were in charge of making this top secret facility and a bunch of crazy shit was going on and you want no one to know, you would kind of want some powerful defense mechanism to make sure nobody wants to get in there. If you have shockwaves that could rip apart people, you're going to think to yourself, I should probably not go in there.
So do you guys think the shockwaves were intentional defense or weapons, or do you think they're like basically byproducts of different experiments or machinery that's going on?
I think it's a cool video game level.
So it's a game mechanic?
Yeah,
Mechanics is metaphor.
maybe you guys talked about this already, but this feels like it's like a set. It's almost like a dream.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't. It decides what it needs to be as it goes along. I don't think it's not a real.
You don't think it has to be coherent?
I think it's the setting is in response to their story or this fairy tale that's telling.
Like
Not-
personally, my interpretation of the game is pretty non-literal. Like I don't, or like I understand some of like the plot interpretations, but I don't find them to be what's exciting about the game.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I definitely want to get into that. But do you want to summarize your your plot synopsis?
Oh yeah, well the plot synopsis is quite, as you said, very fairy tale and a little incoherent, kind of like your dream. You're basically a little red-shirted boy. You go into this facility and you're trying to avoid getting killed by shockwaves, dogs, armed gunmen, or just from long distances. I feel like that entire plot. Remember, like in the very end, where you then become submerged with the blob, and then you escape the facility. My interpretation is that the entire thing was completely staged. That this entire journey was just one massive experiment. And another idea I have that it might also be an allegory for free will. I mean, do you have any free will going inside the facility? Do you have any free will, or is it all predetermined that you're going to just want to venture into this facility and then escape the blob? Like everything is this planned out, this unwritten plan that you're going to follow.
But the thing is, you don't have to follow it. You feel like you do to play the game, but like nothing makes you break in.
Yeah,
you could
true.
just chill outside.
You could do the hardcore nerd ending where did you guys look up the alternate ending?
Yeah.
Jesus, I don't know how anyone would ever find that, but
wait, what?
Yeah,
there's
there's.
an ending where you don't become Cronenberg.
Okay.
Like,
Let's table that for a second, but we're definitely going to come back to that. So tell us about gameplay.
Oh yeah, gameplay is awesome. I feel
That's a pretty hard critique.
We're gonna get really harsh here and like tear it down.
yeah, it's too awesome. It's terrible. It makes me feel bad about myself. But in all seriousness, I feel like gameplay is a little obnoxious in kind of the sense that some puzzles do get kind of confusing. And being how it's 2.5D world, you're not really sure whether it's... there's a lot of illogical things. I mean, you could go through some levels without having to go through this ridiculous maze puzzle. Yeah. Like, you know how you have to get those little... yellow chickens that you have to kill some by putting through that air blower to like push away some box in order to get on top of something. Can't you just find some stairs?
Or walk around the barn.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things in there. Like I felt like Limbo felt very 2D, whereas since this was like 2.5D, there's like a couple times where you're trapped on a platform, but there's clearly stairs in the background. It's just like not an.
There was this one weird puzzle where you have to like angle a plank to jump the other way, and I like couldn't like figure out just by looking at like, exactly which way you're supposed to angle it to make
Yeah. I remember that plank that you have to like rotate slightly. Yeah.
I would disagree that it was that. Well, that specific puzzle you mentioned with you had to like fire and stick into that. I thought it was kind of cool because if it was something like stairs, it would be logical. This one was like you had to like take a mental leap. I find that's a cool thing in puzzles if it's not overdone.
So
yeah, it's totally cool, but it's just like it's frustrating when you see a more 3D world and it's like, you know, well, the character could just walk around, like.
Yeah, like the graphics were maybe work.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that specific puzzle, the one with the chicks, is very much like looking back at it later. I feel like it's the puzzle that's supposed to like introduce you to the mechanic of like, oh, you're gonna have to control things.
Yeah.
You have to like use other beings in this, and that's like, you know, later you're gonna do the mind control stuff, and some of them you're just have to like drop them off cliff like lemmings. And I feel like that's kind of supposed. I feel like it's like a soft way of introducing the concept.
To me, that was like the first point where I felt like this is going to be a dark game. I personally really like chickens. Like I raised baby chickens. And so I was like, oh, this is really cool. There's like all these little chicks want to be my friend. They're following me around.
I thought they were just like blown against the box.
So you blow them against the box, and they get, okay, so most of them get up. But like if you look, there's one that is like that. There's just one dead one that gets like left. And there's a couple that bounce off the other side. You don't know what happens to them. They could be dead or alive. But there's one that always bounces back and just is lifeless after that and never gets up again. And I was like, yeah, like you're gonna to progress, and that's another thing with Limbo. Limbo, like you kill like giant mean spiders and stuff, but like this, I felt like those chickens like weren't doing anything bad. They were really cool.
But they drew first blood,
and I needed them to like go through this barn, so I did it.
To be fair, it's kind of like just kind of the whole game in a nutshell. Like people more powerful than you are like fucking with you and trying to kill you or have killed you. And, you know...
I feel like even less like they're trying actively to kill you and more like they're just using you.
Yeah.
I feel like thematically it's just that thing of like, yeah, you're gonna have to use other people while you're being used by other people while, I don't know, the player is using you or whatever, to just like get through the game. I mean, I think it's very much about that.
Oh yeah, totally. And like I feel like they sort of once you get to the puzzle where you're mind controlling a guy that needs to mind control another guy, then you're like, oh, like... I see. I could be being mind controlled by someone being mind controlled. You know, at that point it goes infinite in both directions.
But something in praise of the gameplay that I really enjoyed was the fact that there was no one telling you what to do at any part. So there's no like, I really need to find this key, and then like a light in front of you, like maybe that's where the key is. I was kind of like wandering around, like what do I do? And I think that kind of made it more immersive and sort of more of like a personal decision when you're like telling the chicks or whatever.
I feel like the fact that you're a kid gives you this feeling of being scared. That was really powerful. I think a kid for that game was good because you start assuming things like, okay, what happened to his parents?
This is the one time I think it's okay to have a kid character. I've like made games with like little kids.
Yeah.
And like, I'm sorry, never making another game with a kid because like nobody wants to be a kid. Like
That's
kids
kinda
don't want to
the
be kids. They
game,
want to be like action figures and like,
Yeah.
it's like not a really good character to be. But in this situation, it's perfect.
It's almost a situation you don't want to be in.
Yeah, you want to be like someone who can fight in
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
situation, but you're not.
So both of what you guys said like kind of reminds. I want to talk about art for a second, but I guess we don't have that. Okay, that's fine.
My bad.
So we're on gameplay. I'll talk about art, but both like the way that the camera kind of shifts, and both that the character reacts to things, and the way that in every level where I'll say level for like each kind of puzzle section, things are sort of drawn out where your attention is drawn to them. So the camera will either kind of pan over to a certain area, or the thing that you need to interact with will be a little bit brighter, or maybe there'll be a light on it. Maybe there'll be some like something shining on it, or something like illuminated.
Master artistry.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the camera work is really, really well done. It's like it feels almost cinematic, like you're not.
Oh,
even
it's very
playing
cinematic. Yeah.
Like you're not even playing a video game. It's kind of like an interactive
But this is
movie.
where I think part of the criticism is because maybe the graphics kind of overstep their bounds a little bit in maybe communicating the story or communicating like the puzzles. Like the problem with like, well, why is there just stairs or why can't I walk around?
Mm-hmm.
Like Limbo might have been, the art and gameplay might have been more
Merge.
cohesive in their
But I do think they do a really great job with like.
beautiful.
Yeah, where like say the very first mind control device, the whole scene is very drab. Like the whole game in general is muted colors. You only have like yellow and red, and even then they're sort of muted. But that first mind control device is like big bright lights on it, like bright yellow spot, like little points, and it's sort of like the brightest thing in this whole scene. And you realize I gotta get there. So okay, I gotta push this pig to get to this thing that you're drawn to because it's like illuminated where like nothing else is. So I think they do a really good job there, like kind of drawing you to the thing that you need to interact with. And then the camera will zoom in, zoom out, pan, rotate, and do all these other things, even though you essentially are stuck on this plane that you can't move off of. The camera moves around to sort of like guide you to where your focus is. And then with the kid, his reactions to different things kind of let you know how you need to feel. So when the first people come up with like a flashlight, like a theme later on is always like stay out of the light. Something you'll either get shot or tased or something.
Or like massive security bots, so like send tasers down you and you'll be captured.
But like when those first guys come with a flashlight, you automatically go into like the sneaking position. Like it's not a button you have to press, but your body language tells you, the player, that like you got to be really careful here.
I hate those dogs.
Yeah, those dogs are so annoying.
Oh god, that fence puzzle.
Yeah, that's so.
I figured out the fence puzzle like right away.
Yeah, you're going on top, and the dogs are continuously barking. It's like, fuck off.
Oh.
I can't think of any other examples where the characters like emote like that.
Oh, in games?
Yeah, usually it's not.
Yeah, like they wouldn't add in a bunch of. I think that's what sort of makes this a really good example, and there probably is, but it's like hard to think of. But there's character animations that aren't controlled by the player. There's a lot of character animations that aren't controlled by the player. So things happen to you, and you do things. Even though your player interaction is only left, right, jump, and the action button, which is like push and pull essentially. A lot is conveyed by like how you react in like different environmental situations. Like sometimes there'll be stuff in the background that you sort of semi-plot driven, even though questions aren't really answered.
Or that scene when you were kind of like are in the abandoned building, and there are those two really long lines of like clones or zombies, and you have to play along in order not to get caught.
Yeah.
Like how that boy will automatically say, "Oh shit, might as well like blend in with the crowd, be a conformist."
Yeah.
Conformist.
Yeah.
One thing. So just to give a little love to the art. One thing that is really good about it is that they did a lot of iterations on animations. So when the kid kind of bumps against a wall, he kind of does things like that. And they do a lot of things like that, and you, in your mind, you kind of like almost feel like you touch that wall.
Yeah.
That would be a lot more difficult in 2D than 3D.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because like animating, once you have all your models and are rigged up and stuff, you can very easily, not very easily, but it's a lot easier to do those subtle animations Rather than if you had it in 2D, it's like more sprites and more like
Yeah. Whereas this, it's like rigging the character, and then you can kind of pre-program the 3D. Speaking of which, I was reading about they call it the huddle in game, but the blob at the end is like a kind of crazy, like I think it's like 26 bodies inside there that are rigged slightly differently so that it can roll, and then depending on your movements, all the arms and legs behave slightly differently depending on what you're doing. And like sometimes one part's the top and sometimes another part's the top, and it can squeeze in and like kind of flail out. So apparently that was like a huge like rigging thing that took like a bunch of like customization within Unity. So yeah, with Limbo they built their own engine, and this they did it all in Unity, but they had to like they had to write some of their own stuff.
Looks great.
Yeah.
There's
So
a
they
lot of custom technology in the game, actually, lighting wise as well.
yeah, I know they did like a kind of like a filter that they then released for free on the asset store if anybody wants the wants the inside filter in their game.
Inside clones. Outside. Playing in the shade.
Instead of playing outside, why don't you go inside and play inside?
So do you want to talk about Limbo?
Yeah. Yeah. Getting back to topic. So the Limbo resemblance is pretty astonishingly high. I mean, remember, any of you played Limbo, right?
It's a sequel, basically.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like a prequel, like what happens before the events of Limbo.
So we can talk about it. We both have different theories on why it might be a prequel.
I mean, my idea of why it might be a prequel is because you see similar themes. The mind control, the hostile environment, everyone's trying to kill you, the abandoned, decaying cities, the fact that you're kind of like running to this one destination and there's a bunch of obstacles. And the same with... What are you doing?
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. And how Inside is kind of the same story. And I would even argue that, Inside is kind of a prequel to Limbo because, I mean, if you see, like, Limbo, there's the ending game where you're kind of having to go through this factory, this research facility of, like, in negative gravity, and it's totally abandoned. Like, there's not a single soul in there. That it might be that might have been abandoned or some catastrophe would have happened, which would have led on to Limbo.
Yeah. So you were when we were talking earlier, you were thinking like this is the same setting, just now everybody's dead and there's no people left, but this is like kind of like the same facilities and factories
Yeah, exactly.
we're going through. And this has to do with the ending. For me, I felt like it kind of felt like a prequel because at the beginning of Limbo, I take Limbo as not being like set in the real world. I take it as being set in Limbo, literally. You get up and there's kind of like light shining on you. You stand up, and then you walk, and the first thing you do is you have to cross this
Also, keep dying.
body of wire. And crossing the body of water is sort of related to what's the mythology for like
River Styx.
yeah Styx. But like at the very end, so we'll talk about the end for a second. Of Inside, you almost get to the water, but you end up in this patch of light. So to me, it feels like you die there, and essentially Limbo's a sequel where your soul is now in that same. It's kind of like another world version of the same scene, where you get up in that patch of light, and now you actually are crossing this water that you almost made it to, as the blob.
I felt like Limbo was more of a whimsical game. It was less realistic.
Yeah.
And so that kind of plays into your theory.
Yeah, to me, Limbo definitely felt like this is like a spiritual world, and Inside felt like this is the real world. Maybe like an alternate take on the real world, but
Which one do you feel was scarier?
Probably Limbo.
I feel like Limbo, more things scared me. Like everything's in the shadow, and like you can't necessarily tell what something is till it kills you. Really, I died a lot more in Limbo. And
Spider legs coming out.
yeah, like a spider leg out of nowhere, and you're like, oh, that was a spider, and it was in the shadow, and it killed me.
Definitely more classic horror, where it's like the abstract
Yeah.
scares you rather than the realistic.
Yeah. Whereas Inside, I actually found it to be a lot easier. Not a whole lot killed me. I didn't feel like there's a lot of things directly trying to end my life, but I felt like the game forced me to do a lot more things I was uncomfortable with. I never felt uncomfortable doing any of the things I did in Limbo. Like you kill a spider, you move some magnets, whatever. And this is like, first you have to like shoot the chickens, and then you're pushing this poor pig around that's already like half dead, just so you can use a stepping stone.
Yeah, plus in Limbo, there's a lot more that's trying to kill you. Instead of like just falling down a really long flight of stairs, there's like kids with blow darts trying to kill you. There's like tribal people trying to kill you. There are like elaborate traps. There's spiders. There's a machine gun shooting at you.
You're maybe like more clearly a protagonist, whereas inside it's kind of unclear like what your motives are.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
very
true.
unclear what your motives are.
See, I kind of disagree. I feel like Inside's just a little scarier, just because like most of your obstacles are because humans, not because of whimsical
Yeah.
spiders or
Well, that's-
machine guns and shit.
Yeah, well, that's what I meant by it. It made me feel bad more about the actions that I was doing.
But
There's
like,
also a turn in the middle of Inside where actually you die, but you keep going when you drown, and the water creature.
So do you feel like that's like?
That was weird. I didn't
Yeah.
like that.
I still don't understand.
It's
Yeah,
kind of a
yeah.
weird sequence, but like subverts everything. Like if you
Yeah.
thought like you were like the protagonist of like some heroic journey before that, afterwards it becomes a lot less clear because what exactly your character is doing and what their purpose is in the world.
So let's talk about moments. Because I think this is the last regular
Let's stay
slide.
on that moment for a second. So, like the mermaid comes up and revives you.
I think it kills you first.
Oh right. Yeah.
So do you? Okay, yeah. So first, tell us like what
the
your take
mermaid
is.
trying to kill you throughout that whole scene.
Yeah.
And then it gives you magical superpowers.
Yeah, you can breathe underwater now. Power up.
hmm
They got jumping sharks.
So do you think you actually died at that point, and that's kind of like the real end of the game? And at this point, you're
It's well, I mean, I don't know if you want to go into super spoilers, but there's some theories that say like even before then you're not. Really
I mean, we could go into
That's the
super
problem with
spoilers.
this thing. You actually die and it breaks the, but you still keep going. Or usually you die and it restarts.
So I
Yeah.
think you just might be a different kid every time you start.
With the same clothes.
Here's a fresh new start.
I mean, think about it. Like, you had to make a huddle out of something, right? Why not just a bunch of children?
I mean, it could be, but I don't think you're a new kid because you get to start where you were, right? Because
Yeah,
wouldn't that new
well-
kid have to start at the beginning again?
Well, that's more of a video game thing, because if you died and then had to start at the beginning of a basically like 5-hour game, you'd be pissed
Mhm.
off.
Well, so your motivation is still the same. So you're the same.
And it
same
just-
soul.
Puts you. I don't know. I feel like that's a little plot breaking for it to be like a new kid. I feel like that's still a game mechanic where you like start after
it's
last
more
puzzle.
plausible in Limbo that you actually do die.
Do you actually do die?
In Limbo.
In
'Cause
Limbo.
In Limbo, it feels just kind of like you said, it's an unreal world. Here
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
little
yeah.
too grounded
Mhm.
in realism, at least in the art style, that it feels more like a game.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, so when the siren basically finally gets you and puts that thing on you that makes you breathe, what do you guys think is actually happening there?
I mean,
Who
it
knows?
makes you breathe, but it also gives you the power to use the mind control without just it. Because after that, they just start.
Okay, I didn't connect that. I had a different theory about mind control without the helmet.
It's but it's like after that. It's
Yeah.
able to do that suddenly. It's
So I was thinking the mind control without the helmet was because you're being mind controlled and those other things are, and you're just being mind controlled by the same person. And that was more of a reveal that maybe you didn't really have control over them, but the same entity is controlling everyone. But I didn't think about that. So is it really like a super clear line between the breathing underwater as well?
Well, I feel like a big theme of the game is like body modification,
Uh-huh.
and so it feels like it's in line with the other like body modification elements you see. Like there's like the people chained up in like the reverse gravity. Oh yeah, there's reverse gravity in this game too.
Yeah.
The reverse gravity underwater thing, like all those people chained up could be like, people about to be turned into the mermaid people. And I think like early in the game, there's also like some weird pods that maybe like kind of indoctrinating people into being like the mind control puppets. So like there's this very broad theme, and of course like the blob at the end. So there's this very broad theme of like controlling people, not only in terms of mind control, but also body control and like just reconfiguring them. And it's at that point like you're no longer like if you thought you were human definitely no longer human at that point.
So there's a couple of things that I do want to get back to. Do you want to wrap up the analysis slide?
Oh yeah. So we were having this discussion about debate about sorry to cut you short about this debate about whether the line of people that are like kind of being lined up in that abandoned city are either clones that were artificially grown or they're just genuinely being mind controlled. And you put up some interesting points. Remember that scene, that creepy scene where underwater water that was somehow being held up by gravity and people were being held upside down with devices, and those deformed people that were helping you get out of there, that these people might actually just be clones, and that we're just controlling these clones. And an interesting theory about it is that this is just nothing more than just kind of not even a post-apocalyptic environment. It's a beautiful intro.
It's kind of like a ET a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I was wondering, and this kind of goes to some of the things you're talking about, is those
Pods that might have people in it.
they might have people in it. Those guys might put you in it when they grab you.
It's interesting, like they attack you on sight, and though you look like a normal human.
Yeah,
Anyway,
but you're also breaking in. So one of the reasons I wanted to start here, but we'll get back to those people in a second, is like when you played the game, at least the feeling I got is I'm just trying to get out of here, man. I'm just trying to get out of here. And then you finish it and you start again at the beginning and you're like, I was fine. Like, and now I'm breaking into this whole thing. I'm the one that goes under this barbed wire. I'm the one that breaks in this facility. Like, I start out in the woods and everything was really chill and no dogs were chasing me. And then I decide to like go through a ton of barriers to get into this like closed off facility. And that really like made me start thinking like what my motivation was as a kid to like get into the heart of this. And there's the theory that the blob is mind controlling you. There's a theory that someone else is trying to control you to free the blob. Because like once you're actually in there, like you decide as a player, oh, okay, now I'm naked in this. Why am I getting in this tank with this big scary thing? Okay, cool. Now I'm naked and now I'm like freeing it. Like as a player, you're like, oh, this is what I should do. These things look like things I can interact with. But like but it seems when you look back at it in this perspective that your whole mission essentially was to break in this facility and get the blob out.
Yeah, and do you really think that the blob is dead in the end?
It still seemed like it was moving, but it kind of seemed like it was dead. Like it couldn't get all the way to the water.
Maybe it's just tired and it's taking a nap.
Other than escape, it's like I'm free.
Yeah, might as well chill out here.
I kind of felt like it was dead, but yeah, it could just be like, okay, it finally made it out of the facility. So, of the things that you were mentioning, like one of the things I'm not 100% sure of is whether I'm more leaning towards the fact that I think that the zombie-like people were grown and not like mind-controlled regular people. I feel like most of the environments kind of show them growing these people, and then when you actually have a gang of them, some don't have heads, some are just blobs, like they're not really complete. But that scene that we just watched at the beginning, they're loading a bunch of people into the back of a truck and then driving away, which makes me wonder if it doesn't make me think that they're experimenting on them. Huh?
They could also be just growing the people. Like they grow the people in those pods and then they put them in the truck and bring them.
Yeah, but they didn't look like the kind of mutant people that are helping you. They look like regular people wearing regular clothes.
Yeah, I mean, remember
They're
that?
not like flailing around.
Remember that scene where there's a massive train loading a bunch of people into the facility?
Yeah, there's a train too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's more just about the feeling and emotions are take precedence over whatever narrative there might be there.
I feel like they put
this feels so much different than 15 minutes later in the game when you're in this dystopian kind of.
But they put a lot of stuff in there though that like leads you to like stop and watch the plot. So I think the plot is supposed to come together.
I assumed that all of the mind control bodies were just that like I thought that at some point I thought that they were just they were getting people and mind controlling them, and then at some point they were putting the people through these weird tests or having them perform labor, and they just died and they were still moving and they were like reanimated corpses. corpses, and that was why the ones at the end were like missing a head or missing an arm. They were just zombies, basically.
I don't think it
Not
can be
zombies.
that though, because there's that one part when there is a dead one that you are mind control that you have to
Yeah, yeah.
and dump on the thing.
Yeah, you have to drag the dead one.
Also, there's a part where you first like realize there are these weird clunky when you are forced in this position where you walk in line with them.
Yeah.
And I feel like you wouldn't be able to and sometimes
Uh-huh.
it seems less likely if you're
Yeah, that's a really good point. Everybody else is fully grown, but you're a kid, but they don't notice, right? Because you do everything right. The people with masks are sitting there and they're writing stuff down, and nobody goes, "Hey, wait a minute! Like,
And
why
they
is this
have
one a
kids.
kid?"
They have their own kids watching.
Yeah, so that was another kind of thing that I noticed. At least in that part. So people on the stream, we're in Manhattan. There's always siren.
Probably
Wait,
after
do you
those
still have people on
pills.
the stream?
I think there's like 2 people.
Oh, that's yay.
Um,
Here.
Shoot, I totally lost my train of thought. Where did I start going?
Oh no, there were
Oh yeah, the people with the masks. So
Or that.
yeah, so there's like groups of people hanging out with masks. Everybody that's like after you, at least at the beginning, till you get to like the science area, is wearing a mask. Including there's like a woman holding her baby, and the baby also has a mask on it. And that was probably one of the weirdest things for me. Like, why is the baby there, and why does it also need a mask?
And one of my ideas of why it might be a mask is that these are like a special breed of people, like that. It's kind of like you know those social hierarchies in Egypt, like you have the slaves and the soldiers and then the nobles. But I feel like the social hierarchy inside is you have the zombies or clones, you have those masked guards, then you have the scientists. That it's like this very special, contained world.
This,
One kind of like straightforward interpretation of inside is that it's just like a socialist critique of capitalism and the exploitation of labor by an elite
So what's the ending?
class system. The ending is just like the revolt of the like
I
proletariat.
mean, you do become
But
a
you do
collective.
actually
Yeah.
you become a literal collective. You get remanipulated by the elites.
Uh-huh. Which is sort of what happened in the Soviet Union, right? Everybody became a collective, but then they still had a ruling class at the end of it.
Did anyone else write about that? Is that thing
I saw that on some forums.
Uh-huh.
Also, one of the I don't know if you noticed, but like one of the cool parts in the end of the game is that the very ending scene is telegraphed. Like there's a point when you're at the blob and you drop down through like some floors, and you drop down into this like little like diorama studio thing,
Yeah.
and that is the end of the game.
Yeah.
That's the
Oh,
exact
that's the
scene.
Truman Show thing.
Yeah, yeah. You end up in this diorama that's like a mock-up. Oh, so here's the scene where I was like, everything's drab, but this like definitely has bright lights on it. So you know, like you somehow need to get to that.
Same thing was true with the chicks, although that actually like discouraged me from solving that puzzle for a few minutes.
Yeah.
I thought there was something to run away from. I couldn't tell if they were chicks. I
Oh
thought they were like little, things that were gonna eat me or something.
no, I totally had a bad
Those
feeling
guys
later.
totally just died.
They died for a good cause.
For the blob.
Sarodino.
So I think there's a lot of games in movies where people have like sort of like maybe there sort of rises like 2 different theories on what's going on. But with Inside, I was reading a couple of forums and like it seemed like everybody had a really different theory. There wasn't like necessarily consensus on what things sort of lined up, and that itself I found really interesting.
It's just so cinematic. I mean, it's just one of those beautiful games. Like,
It reminded me a lot of like, not to get pretentious, but it reminded me a lot of like Andrei Tarkovsky, just in terms of the visuals and in terms of the way that it's a little bit abstract and it's a little bit fairy tale in a kind of bleak way.
is that the Russian?
Yeah, he's a Russian.
Solaris.
Oh, by the way, I think one interesting thing about, I guess, the development of this game and this developer is that I'm pretty sure they have a significant chunk of public funding from like art endowments.
Yeah, they actually from the film endowment. Yeah.
So, like for example, I actually went to like Denmark, like I don't know, 5 years ago or something. I remember going to the modern art museum there, and they had like a little display of Limbo. Just
Oh, cool.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's nice.
like, and it was like the only video game there. It was just like modern, like works funded by public funds.
Yeah. So they did when they first started the company, Play did. They got a lot of arts funding. This is the hard to tell like flank thing. And they got investors too, but they were eventually able to buy the investors back out to get the company back. But even after that, they always applied for a bunch of film grants and stuff like that. So this puzzle actually I thought was kind of funny because it's like why was the safe attached to the tied to the end of the thing for any other reason other than to make you fall if you didn't get off there like right away?
Yeah, it's very convenient, don't you think?
It like that whole setup seemed like really arbitrary.
The
Like,
settings are so familiar, but they're done so well. Like the
Mhm.
factory, the forest, the barn, the farm. Like they're just generic settings, but with the way they've done it, it's so.
Yeah.
So wait, am I the only one who accidentally had to do the dog fence puzzle twice?
Oh God, yes.
Oh,
If you
hated
go,
that puzzle so much.
I hated that puzzle so much. And like the dogs are still barking after getting to their side. I
Yeah.
wanted to taunt the dogs and kick them, so I went back over there. If you actually get too close to the door, the dogs will get you and like pull you down, and you actually have to restart back on the other side.
Yeah.
you can taunt the dogs and kick them?
No,
Oh.
they won't get you.
Okay. Yeah.
Like after like you get through like some like wooden plank falls down and kind of blocks them from chasing after you.
I
But
see.
they're still like barking at you, and so like if you go back and like try to taunt them,
Oh, they'll bite you through the plank.
they'll get you. I don't know.
Okay.
They'll punish you.
Lesson learned.
Like I
kid.
feel, actually, like I kind of feel like this game, kind of the design problem they're trying to solve here is how do they make this dystopian world without also like make it feel oppressive, but without making it like an action game.
Uh-huh.
The games most similar to this game to me feel like The Last of Us and Half-Life 2.
Mm.
Particularly
Half-Life 2?
Half-Life 2,
yeah.
not all the sections, but particularly like what is it, the head crab zombie town.
Got it.
Oh, yeah. Ravel Home.
Yeah.
They don't go there anymore.
It's got the Eastern European kind of
Yeah.
vibe that Half-Life 2 had.
To me, it actually reminded me a lot of Out of This World, which was like our first game of the month. Just not only being basically a puzzle-solving 2D cinematic
Yeah.
game.
It's in that genre, or Abe's Oddworld is another game
Yeah,
that
yeah.
actually uses the mind control gameplay mechanic a bit, where you're controlling different characters, and then they'll be on a higher plane, and you've got to have them kill other people, or even like kill themselves.
Yeah.
That's very dark.
I'm kind of curious, like, if anybody here is really into games like The Last of Us that are more like combat focused, and what you thought about this game, because I actually played this game with my boyfriend who's really into those kinds of games, and he was like, this game's kind of too easy. But for me, that's someone that's like really into point and click adventures, I was like, this is like my right level of challenge.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how anyone else felt about it.
Yeah, I never felt bored, but I was like, I think maybe there's like 3 times where I was like, I don't really know what to do, and then like, oh, okay, I see what to do. But a lot of the times it's like, I felt like right away I kind of like figured it out.
Well, I felt like
Yeah, I mean,
the,
I was gonna say the puzzles aren't like the level of like The Witness or something.
like actually like in this game I felt more frustrated when I got to a puzzle, so I really just wanted to get through what the game is.
Uh-huh.
Which I felt was more like this. Actually, like one of the things is I feel like they intentionally made the puzzles very easy, like compared to the puzzles in Limbo, which were like a lot more involved and had like a lot more moving pieces.
Yeah, like Limbo definitely stumped me a couple of times.
Yeah, it got a little annoying after a while.
So in this,
especially the puzzles at the end when you're the blob, kind of just feel like jokes about all the puzzles you already solved.
Mm.
You have to do this with all the weird animations and like tossing like the flaming like
Yeah.
thing at the end over the water.
that was kind of crazy.
Bizarre, yeah.
So we just passed the part with the giant robots. So why do you think in a society where they have giant robots that they need biological like labor?
Someone needs to pilot the giant robot. Even go here. That's it. That was the whole plot of even going.
Yeah, this is very Half-Life 2. Like in Half-Life 2, you wait in a line, and you're like oppressed by.
It also reminds me of Children of Men.
Yeah, you were just saying
And
that.
Half-Life is very influenced by Half-Life.
Yeah.
It feels like this game's
So-
or the world's very
Yeah, so one of his theories was that they're actually cloning people because people can't reproduce anymore.
Yeah, and so they have to like do something. I mean, you see, like there are two children. There's like one baby, and
Yeah,
you're
and then
the
one
child.
guy has a kid, yeah.
Yeah, and then this is like kind of mankind's last resort in order to like find reproduction
Yeah.
because it's like they have to control the entire population.
So there's like a couple kids, and then this is the one
Yeah.
holding the
This is what they
baby.
need to do. It's the only chance to.
for
And
survival.
this baby has like a mask on. Oh, you can't really see it.
But here's another example of the character animation giving the players cues on like how to behave.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're saying when he's like hiding and he's seeing flashlights. There's another time where it's like you see your character doing something different.
Yeah. And I like how he looks around. Like that's more like just kind of environmental animation. That's not the character.
Funny story about this part.
Yeah.
So New York Public Library actually did kind of like this sort of small discussion about it.
Oh, okay.
And afterward, they just had the game, playing, and it was basically like a bunch of kids started playing it, like 10, 9, 8 years old, and they were stuck on this part for the longest time.
Really?
But I'm like, wow, this is really weird watching kids play inside, and I'm like, I kind of wonder like if they picked up like any of the crazy stuff we're talking about.
So do you think they're having a hard time because they couldn't like grasp the environment and then like mimic it?
I feel like they were probably raised on like platformers where you are constantly like moving.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of I feel like it's a generational like kind of learning thing. Like
I was gonna say what's kind of interesting about that scene that just played is that in order to survive 3/4 of the scene, you actually have to perform and walk in the same time. But at the very end of that scene, in order to survive, you actually have to break free and start running.
Yeah.
If you don't start running this time, you die.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting that it plays a little bit like you have to perform at the same time. Not really.
Yeah, like at a certain point you have to like go, oh shit, like they're onto me, and like break. This was like another weird thing where I'm like, why in the world do they have a mind control thing hanging from a cart?
They have it for one specific purpose. Maybe the Berlov knew that this was going to happen. That's why it's so convenient.
Yeah. Oh, so here's the one that pissed me off the most is like that platform clearly has stairs going down, and like you have to do this crazy thing with double mind control. Where why can't you just like take that perfectly good spiral staircase that's just on the z-axis?
take that, Whimsy.
My references are really outdated, but I actually haven't played this game yet. I'm gonna have to probably tonight, but it totally reminds me of a matchup of like a boy and his blob and Silent Hill with Mist.
Yeah.
That's just from looking at it.
Yeah, I do kind of see how it does have a bit of that mist quality, that kind of abandoned, mysterious.
And like puzzles you gotta solve.
Yeah.
Other fancy.
I'd say like you like do like moments here and then you like do like.
Yeah, I think the color palette is definitely like pretty powerful in the way that they did all
It's
this.
a sense of scale. It's like how far away is that wall? It just goes back so far.
It does have a very large scale. Like most buildings are like massive, and as you said, like the underwater scenes are just huge. It's just like,
Yeah, you can go really deep.
how big is this place? How much is rent there?
I mean, like, it could just also be the fact that the main character is a kid. It's through.
So the world just seems bigger for him.
Yeah, it's like exaggerated. Yeah, it's exaggerated, but that's kind of how you have to. It kind of lends to feeling like that, like seeing that the whole world is large and scary and large.
Like you ever go back to a place that you were as a kid, and you go back to the home. This room was small, like
Yeah, like elementary school is.
Well, have you ever seen, you guys were talking about how this is like, the world is in a state where there are these bombs and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was playing the game, I kind of felt like this was some weird, like, futuristic Walmart or something.
Walmart?
They operate mostly in these semi-abandoned warehouses.
Yeah.
And what kind of happened as a child, you're sort of still able to get through. There's not that much security, and like
Yeah.
To me, it felt more like it was this side project of this weird corporation that was doing this that you happened upon, rather than this is the state of the world at the moment.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for like an active like scientific research facility, it's like so much of it seems like it was abandoned like a long time ago, like really in disuse. And people will chase you for a while, and then they'll just be like, "Oh, okay." They'll like leave you alone. Then you don't see another person for a while again.
I love this puzzle. Well, the platforming bit.
It's so creepy. It's like a bunch of people in cages. It's kind of like reminds me of those scenes in Auschwitz.
Yeah, I read about that too, like especially with like loading people on the trains and stuff.
I think the whole thing is visually and thematically really cross reminiscent, especially like in the end, just with the whole theme of like human experimentation and like
Yeah.
modification of the human body. Like once you put up the flower, which is depressing.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you said, it might actually, the entire game might kind of be like a very dark interpretation of the human soul. Like, how far down are we willing to go down the moral ladder? And how it's kind of ironic how it bites us in the ass that the person that we crush to death later as the blob might be like the head of research.
See, I thought it was just like a tech startup, and like that blob was the next new social platform.
They jump back on the Holocaust thing, the control, like people, like how could people commit these acts? Like you're being controlled, and you're controlling other people do things.
So like we just went from like seeing all these people getting loaded on trains, and now there's all these abandoned trains. It's like, what happened? Like, it seems like it definitely like shifts pretty readily between like a sort of like a post-apocalyptic world and like a regular like kind of functioning world.
That's kind of the cool part of it, though. That it feels like some kind of post-apocalyptic or dystopian, but they make it look like it's the 1940s or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like it has an older look rather than newer.
Yeah.
And it looks like it wasn't abandoned for a really long time. Like maybe it was abandoned like 10 years ago.
Everything's still functional, even though it's like covered with like dirt and water and torn. Like all the technology seems to still work fine, which is interesting. Everything's still powered. He made it in one. Oh, so wait, you went back and like taunted the dogs?
Yeah, fence puzzle.
Oh, they pulled you through that door.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, I didn't try to go back there after that.
Thug life.
So maybe we should talk about like sort of the part of the meta themes. So one of the things that I kind of got from the end so who have you guys played or at least seen like the alternate ending where you actually unplug all the orbs? Okay, we're going to talk about some spoilers.
Wait, can we put it on the screen?
Oh, you want to see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Spoil it visually.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see if I don't know if this playthrough has it, but we can find it.
If it's a speed run, maybe not.
It's probably doesn't.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's not like a 100%. So maybe we'll come back to that. I could definitely find a video where they beat it. One of the things that I was stuck on for a second is you know how you can kind of charge and do that boost.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you could do that to fling yourself out of the water. So there's that one part where like you have to like jump it.
Yeah, I was there for like 20 minutes.
I wasn't there for 20 minutes, but that was like I played it.
Let's go forward.
Yeah, I played it in two playthroughs. Like I played like 2 hours 2 nights ago, and then 2 hours like the next night. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go home and go to bed. And when I came back, I was like, oh, I can do this. But I did do like one kind of pass where I doubled back to see if I was supposed to like be somewhere else.
Damn, was there a flood? Must have been some sort of Katrina.
This also reminds me of like one of the things I like about the camera, and that Limbo also did was like skewed angles on things. It doesn't always like line up directly. Like sometimes the world's like this, cockeyed like this.
To be fair though, like the beginning of the game kind of looks like at least a little like wetlandy, so maybe this facility was built on some like really shitty ground. And some, yeah, Gowanus, yeah. Oh wait, it's Gowanus.
Nah, it's just Brownsville.
Oh, the water doesn't murder you, so I guess it's not Gowanus.
Oh, all right.
The water doesn't order you.
Can you go up like really high before that Harvey go down the hill again? Because I don't know. I don't want to think too hard about the geography. It doesn't make sense.
Should we maybe skip to that part?
This is more science fiction than fantasy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that part where you're playing the blob is actually a lot of fun. Just screw
It's-
the puzzles. Just tear open
Yeah.
the door.
It's a little crazy to me. Like when that first happened, I was like, "Can I get out? Oh, I can't. Am I like this forever?" Like I kept thinking, like, "Am I like I wanted to go back and be the kid again?" But like eventually, you sort of like accept, like I'm just the blob, I guess, for the rest of the game.
I don't know. I did try to crawl into the furnace.
I did too. Yeah.
Yeah, same.
I thought I was just trying to kill myself at this point. Like, oh man, I'm an abomination, and like my whole reason is to die.
Yeah, my Tinder profile is going to look kind of different.
Yeah, so there's like keeps going down. Yeah, so now he's the blob. Like you think so like there's a lot of theories about like whether this was all intentional because the scientists are lined up at the end. Like they're all gathered there to see the blob. But then they definitely aren't down with like getting killed and flooded just then. Yeah, but that's like at the very end. So I'm wondering if that guy already knows that it's a trap at that point. So Andrew, here's more of the stuff that seems like a studio, right? There's all these cameras and lights.
They show Westworld and they have like
Yeah, it's very Westworld in there. Yeah.
This is before though.
You know what? Screw this puzzle. I'm not good.
Yeah, at this point you're like, I don't need to figure out these barriers anymore. I can just.
Remember Japanese games you used to roll around and collect stuff?
yeah, Katamari.
That was such a good game.
You know, I could definitely see Flesh and Katamari being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the name of the game. Flushing.
It
Yeah.
reminds me a little of Shadow of the Colossus.
hmm
In a way, you're like similarly underpowered.
Yeah. Well, I also got the
Like,
same
weak
sense.
points until the end when you can become like the monsters that you've been destroying. Like, flips the table.
Yeah. I got the same sense where like you're sort of being forcefully emotionally compromised as you do these actions.
Yeah.
Which Shadow of the Colossus was sort of the same thing.
The kind of interesting thing about this blob is that there's in this Greek mythology, there's like the story in the beginning of the world where they use these massive mutants with 100 arms, 100 heads, 100 legs, and they're these massive, powerful beings that rule the earth. And now it's a little similar to this, just this massive human blob.
Is it Greek or what mythology is that?
It's a Greek mythology, I believe.
Oh, that's cool. Maybe.
So-
This giant at the end.
So I wanted to pause it here because this is the kind of terrarium we were talking about where this looks like the end of the game as a stage. Like, this is what leads a lot of people to think it was planned. But, like, all these people freaking out and running away are, like, not, like, I don't know.
See, those people are watching.
Those people are, but this guy's, like, on the ground. Like, he's injured.
I mean, could they be watching this because they're like, oh shit, I heard the blob
Yeah.
They're like, oh, should I take this on my phone?
So you think they're just, like, regular workers and, like, don't,
I can imagine
Don't
that
really care.
Snapchat story just happening.
It's like the lunchroom.
yeah.
Yeah, they definitely are right with that.
Oh yeah, you definitely care about that one guy.
They're running in the same direction.
Yeah, the people from the railing are, like, observing. But, like,
Yeah, definitely.
so here's, like, this guy did not definitely sign up on this.
Damn, only 4 days before retirement.
Yeah. And you're just covered with blood, like, the rest of the time.
No, you wash it
It washes
off.
off.
No, I feel like it's still kind of on you.
I mean,
Maybe
it's
it
a
does.
speed run, so there's no, like, rings, but, like,
Just, like, figures out that puzzle.
See, those guys are actually kind of helping you out a bit.
Yeah.
no, I kind of
Are
wonder
they?
if it's just like,
I feel-
well,
I thought it was just, like, the last guy at the very end.
or is it, like, some
Like,
sort
they're
of-
not down. Like, you just, like, this guy almost died just now.
Yeah, why are they helping you? Well,
Sure, it was one of those other ones that
Yeah,
helps,
there's
like,
one-
The very next thing you see, like,
Yeah.
it led you into a trap.
Yeah, the dude this guy, that kind of like helps you get into what turns out to be a trap is kind of helping you. Like you throw the thing up and then he like pulls it for you and then gives it back. And what's funny is he's like, go, go. Like he like kind of, oh, this guy went too fast. But if you stay, he's like, go through the door. So this arena to me seems very staged. It's a little bit hard to see, probably on the projector. It's actually hard for me to see on this monitor too. But in the background, there's a ton of people watching. And it's like they had that all planned out from the beginning. They seem really different from the crowd of like scientists running around and being totally freaked out.
Kind of a little like the Oppenheimer project.
Oh, I skipped too far. But yeah, you basically pull yourself out of the tub. So meta-wise, oh yeah, we were going to watch like the other ending, and then we were going to talk about that.
Yeah, it's kind of like that old saying: the only winning move is not to play, and that's kind of the metaphor for this game. Like kind of the little boy is like a key element to this entire catastrophe.
Yeah, so for those of you that hasn't seen it, this is like the standard ending, where you just almost make it to the water. But you do make it in this little spot of sun. And this is what really reminded me of like the beginning of Limbo. You sort of wake up in this little spot of light, and then you cross the water.
Oh, yes, maybe you were the spirit.
Yeah, that's what I thought. You're the spirit of the boy, maybe.
That is weird, because the facility's still fine. Like, I mean, a few people died, but it didn't, like, what's the impact of this ending?
Well, yeah, so the question is, what was, if you are being controlled, which I think that extra ending kind of shows that you are, what's controlling you and what was the motivation? Was it the blob that just wanted to get out? Was it the scientists that wanted you to get the blob out? Was there like different factions within there? Was there somebody that was controlling you just because they wanted to destroy the facility?
Maybe the blob was, the mind control element that was controlling everything, and it was like, I don't want to be used for evil anymore.
Yeah, a lot of people do think it was the blob. So we'll do.
Well, I was gonna say, just after seeing that kind of trap door scene, it almost felt like you should have met another blob and fought to the death or something. It did feel very staged, just seeing that like circular trap door and you fall down it. I don't know.
I don't want to see.
I was gonna say, regardless of who may be doing the controlling, I do find some reason to believe the control theory in the like movement animations, because like even though it's like really good on the whole, like there are some of the motions that look a little derpy in a very slight way that seems like it might have been intentional, like the jumping. I don't know if you guys thought that. Yeah, it looks a little bit, you kind of get a hint of the way that the other, control people move. Like,
One thing is like it also kind of contradicts, like if you're being mind controlled, it contradicts those subtle animations we talked about where the voice like displays.
Yeah.
It's like it looks like he feels nervous in some scenes.
Yeah, he's definitely always reacting to the environment. So what I wonder is if how mind control works, and if you actually seen things through his eyes when that's happening. But yeah, so there's these wire. Did you have something to say, Zara? Okay, so there's these. Oh, it's really hard to see. Hey, do you want to hit the lights for a second so we can see like the? There's two, and one will be there, and one will be us. So I think it's the one. I think it's do the opposite of that. Yeah. Okay, now you can at least see a little bit. So throughout the game, there's these yellow wires, and every time you see a yellow wire, it usually leads to an orb somewhere. And at the end, every time you pull a plug, it lights up there. So if you pulled all the orbs, then you find this giant orb, and you can disable this orb, provided all the other orbs have been pulled. You don't really actually get to see what's in there. You just have to run in and like pull on something, so you don't really know. And then when that happens, there's a single wand still left rolling, and that one that's still there. Oh, the guy playing this clearly doesn't know what he's supposed to do next. The one that's still there is like way back at the beginning in the cornfield. He'll figure it out, maybe. Okay.
But that's at the end of the game?
That big orb is at the very end.
Oh, so you beat it and then you play again.
Well, I think what happens is if you start walking back, it'll cut. So what you find is this kind of, oh man, this is actually a weird puzzle. I don't know how people have figured out how to solve yet. I didn't read enough.
A lot of red.
music playing in the game that plays the
Yeah,
commentary.
You mimic the game music.
It's the thing is, there's at the other there's two other locations with the words, and they have phonographs next to them or record players,
Uh-huh.
and they play kind of like tones, and you have to imitate like the pattern of the tones. It's like you would never know it unless you learn it.
How did you?
Although I think when you move the lever, you hear the tones clearly. So you can
Yeah, let's watch this with sound. But do you have to do something to the phonographs to make them play, or are they just playing
They're
when you
just
get there?
playing, like, these tones while you're kind of standing there. You just have to
Okay.
listen to them here.
Maybe the switch works now. Like, what's
Ah, this guy's talking.
pull that one before, but
I mean, it said manly let's play, so.
Seriously, people have no lives.
So that whole pattern is based on the sound, which we didn't really hear a very good version of, but we can always come back to it. So then you basically find this area that looks like an alternate lab that somebody was kind of living in, possibly recently. It actually kind of gave me a little bit of a Firewatch vibe. It's like somebody's been here recently, and this doesn't look like 100% kosher. And you go through the dark for a while, and then eventually you see like one last like mind control device kind of in the background. He's gonna come up on it pretty shortly. And this one has a lot of wires coming out of it. This whole thing seems very separate from the rest of the facility. And then at the very end, there's like one final plug. And you pull that plug, and then you just go limp. And that's sort of, it's just like when you unplug from the other guys that you're mind controlling. So the takeaway is kind of that you've been being mind controlled this whole time, and now you've unplugged yourself. And so then you wonder, like, okay, well, what was controlling you? You know?
Player.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you,
So that was my personal theory: is that it's just you, the player with the Xbox control pad,
Yeah.
are the one that just like got disconnected.
but you decided to do that.
You decided to do that.
Because you don't want to be a part of this entire experiment. That kind of like, you want to think that you're separate from the experiment, but just simply by going inside the facility, that you are actually a part of this massive, elaborate plan.
Yeah. So one of the things I kind of liked about this is I felt like what you were saying, like the only way to win is not to play. Like I can't go left. So what can I do? And this is sort of like your alternate, your option. Oh, is that me?
Yeah.
Weird.
Is that you?
Yeah,
That's cool.
you're recording though,
You made,
Yeah.
You made this YouTube?
I'm This is YouTube in real time. No, it's probably like our stream.
right? Up, down, left, right.
Yeah.
Right.
But it is the sound though. All right, I'm gonna mute myself. So yeah, so this reminded me of Inception a little bit, where Inception has all the different theories, like does the thing drop, does it not drop? And my theory that I always had was that it doesn't matter, because the whole point of Inception was telling you that you might be sleeping and this might be false reality, because there's that tune that they play in Inception, and the actual music from Inception is the tune but slowed down like 10 times, so that it's like saying you're supposed to be. The music is trying to tell you to wake up. It's time to wake up. So that's kind of my takeaway with this. Is like a lot of people say, "Oh, it's the blob that's controlling you," or somebody else that's trying to sabotage it that's controlling you. And I see it as kind of like completely meta, where it's really you with the controller that's the one in control that's getting disconnected.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it really reminds me of the movie Moon.
Moon, yeah. Same kind of premise. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you got it. That's a big popular piece of science fiction right now. That we're all living in a giant Grand Theft Auto simulation.
Yeah, that life itself is just one giant dream or separate reality. And there are like so many philosophical arguments saying that like there are multiple realities that you are completely unaware of. I mean, you are aware of Plato's allegory, the cave, right?
We're looking. We're only staring at the shadows on the wall. There's a fire behind us.
Yeah, there's a fire behind us, and that's reflecting shadows. Your entire life, you just see shadows, and you simply assume that shadows are living beings. But once you get unchained and you see the real world, it's like, holy crap!
That reminds me of Flatland, sort of.
Yeah.
But we're still stuck in a simulation. Like
everything's a hologram.
I mean, it's still like our simulation. So it doesn't matter if we're awoken or not. We're still we can't bend spoons.
We can't bend spoons.
Yeah, we can't red pill this shit. Like,
yeah, I'll still. I mean, I'll still stick with the red pill.
Even on the slightly less philosophical one genre-based note, like I think it's still, even if you're not thinking of it from the standpoint of like, oh my god, we're all living in an illusion. It's a really interesting commentary on like the nature of gaming. You know.
Yeah.
Do you have well, yeah, of course you have to keep moving. Like that's how it works. That's how you play the game. Like you keep moving forward.
Although I think that there's been some interesting criticism recently in games about games. Like, yeah, like this part of the game is like about playing the game, so kind of like more times it's also like the whole like ending is this constructed artifice that's for you, the player, to enjoy, and it's like kind of like this secret ending is criticizing you for enjoying the actual ending they crafted. The actual ending they crafted is much cooler than this ending, I think.
It's the opt-out ending. Yeah.
I mean, it kind of reminds me of like, Bioshock with the whole
The alternate ending reminded me. There's a board game called Train that's literally about Auschwitz, and one of the rules are a little bit vague, but basically the game can end when the game ends when everybody decides it's over. So the real way to win is to at the very beginning, without doing anything, is just say the game's over and declare that it's over and then be done.
That's kind of a bad game.
Well, you don't know what's happening at first, and you realize that you're like shipping people in trains.
Oh yeah. True.
It makes me think of Undertale, which we did a long time ago.
Yeah.
Which is like an Undertale. You decide to kill everyone, and people play it and try to kill everyone just because they can.
Yeah.
And
calls you out on it.
yeah, and in this one, like you're the stuff you have to do, like the stuff you want to do.
Yeah. I really liked your point as sort of like agency as the player. Like you sort of have complete control, right? But as someone that's used to playing video games, you're like, I need to run to the right and pull all the levers and push all the things. And so the game sort of knows that and kind of keeps channeling you to like these crazier and crazier situations. And you kind of go along with it because you're like, I need to progress. Or maybe you don't actually need to progress.
If the alternate ending is connecting the character's mind control to the player, maybe that is a way of explaining why the ending's kind of open-ended, where like you have a character that doesn't have an ostensible motivation because that's provided by the player. Like I'm moving right because I choose to like invade this compound or whatever. So it's like linking that. So it's like whatever motivation I have as a player is basically de facto the character's motivation, where it's like this looks cool, let's check it out, kind of thing.
Yeah, like the desire to explore.
There's also like this chaotic abandon of being the plot, like compared to being the child that's so vulnerable, hiding from everybody in sight. As a blogger, it's kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
Everyone's looking at you.
Yeah.
You don't care. You end up in like a light patch and you just fall asleep.
Let's steal a car. Like, oh man.
I didn't have some say about running back.
Hey, do you want to turn the lights?
Sure.
Or do you want to get them? Cool. So we could have the lights back.
That's good.
Yeah, so it's a little cathartic, right? After like being trapped and like fearful the whole time. You know, none of those guys are going to kill you. And then the dogs come up and they bark, but they kind of are scared. They like back off.
I want to crush some of them. That and offense.
Yeah, I just want to chop down a fence right now. But yeah.
What was like the hardest puzzle for everybody?
The one that I got stuck on and had to look up was this thing where you had to like lure the mermaid to one side, take the chain, and then like have your feet dip into the water. I couldn't. Yeah, I didn't really. I always kept like my video game instinct is I have to just climb up to the top of the chain and then jump across. And back again. And like no.
Yeah, my instinct was like, well, there's a hook on here. Maybe I have to like hook it like a fish. So I was already like dangling my feet in the water, and I was like, oh, if it's already over here, I can just like run to the other side.
Yeah, I think that there's some puzzles that just are like easy for some people to do, and then other people just get stuck on some. But most of the puzzles are like kind of straightforward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was really sad. I mean, you pull the lever and you see this thing's sucking things up, and then it's blowing it at the haystack, and I got to get something in there, and you're like, oh no. Oh, it's especially when you walk back and you're like, you take the thing off the door, and then all the chickens run in.
Yeah, they're not really they're gonna grow up to be slaughtered anyway. Just
Are they? The farm's abandoned. Nobody's around.
All right, true.
They would have. Yeah, the pigs had a pretty bad life, but the chickens look like they're pretty happy.
That's the other thing. The farm, and then like humans, and like producing lots of animals to eat.
Mm-hmm.
That was a theme.
I think the chickens might have also had some brain worms in them.
You don't know that.
Might be a reason they were like following you around.
I think they're just farm chickens.
Yeah,
just regular farm chickens.
You're a kid. I'm a kid too.
Yeah. So the fish also come and follow you around too when you're in the water.
Yeah, they only
like
do
when
that
you.
once you get your god powers to not die in water, whatever. Like, it's,
I'm hacking the game.
Did you guys ever play the game Fathom? It's a really short game. I highly recommend. Adam Atomic, or one of his early things. But you essentially, it starts out like a 2D platformer, almost like a Mega Man or Cave Story. But as soon as you fall in any sort of pit, you're in this underwater world where like fish follow you around. And you kind of spend the whole game trying to figure out how to get out of there, and eventually you end up like moving towards the light, and you're like, oh, this whole game was about what happens after you die in a normal video game. But a majority of it is like you just have this flashlight and you're swimming around and all these fish are following you, and it's very similar to that scene in Inside when you come back alive and there's this big spotlight and all the fish just kind of follow you wherever you go as you're kind of going underwater. Oh, Fathom. Yeah, by Adam Atomic.
Yep.
Yeah. I forget what the big thing he did was.
He
did a Cave Story port.
He did the Cave Story.
Yeah, he ported Cave Story to Wii. Yeah, he does. Cannonball. He did Cannonball.
Oh, so he does. What's their publish? He does Flixel or whatever the hell.
Yeah, he made Flixel for Flash.
Oh, that guy's got a whole publishing studio now.
Yeah.
They look like seals.
But anyway, yeah, before Cannonball, he did Fathom. Yeah.
Oh, really? That's pretty good. Oh, another game we did a long time ago was Out of This World. And you brought up Out of This World once before, but I think this is in the same genre as Out of This World, where you're just a person in a small screen. You can move left, you can jump, you can go up and down, and it's also the deaths are really violent.
Yeah.
Like there's other games in the genre, like Flashback or Abe's Odd World.
Yeah.
Where it's like it's just it's like a platform, but it's a very like controlled platform.
Yeah.
And always really violent. Like death is very violent.
And death happens to you a lot. And I think part of that is they want you to replay just because death at least is interesting.
But it works really well.
Yeah.
Like, it contains space, and something about death always being around the corner.
Yeah.
Kind of intensifies it. But out of This World, very similar. So many death sequences.
So I watched it.
I don't know if this is better than Out of This World. I think this is a pretty good game.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's the same vein.
I think it's definitely a masterpiece.
Yeah. Highly rated.
I think it's better than Limbo. maybe.
It's
Really?
better. Well,
You
I
like-
mean,
you like those?
I have to say, yeah. I mean, it's easier than Limbo. There's a lot more detail in it, and as you said, it's generic, so it's kind of like very mysterious, as in you don't even know which country it is. It can be anywhere from upstate New York all the way to Eastern Europe, or China, or Africa, for all that matter. But it's like really familiar, empty, spooky. It just has all the qualities without all the tediousness of Limbo.
So, one person that was writing was saying that it was like Super Limbo, whereas like Limbo is like the original Mario Brothers. And it's a classic,
It is-
and like
It
you
is-
can't really take it down. But
it
then
is
Super Mario World came out, and it's like everything but like kind of better and more.
It is
Super Limbo.
Yeah. And so I was watching a couple playthroughs this morning, and one of the ones I was watching was Game Grumps.
Oh,
And
God.
one of the things they said that I thought was kind of apt is he goes, "It's just like Out of This World, but with no friends." Because like Out of This World, you have your homie the whole time, right? It's like helping you out. Yeah, inside you're just on your own.
Reaction, like Dan's reaction at the end. I'm like, oh, there's an alternate ending though. He sort of, the kid kind of lives.
Oh, in the alternate ending?
Like they ran into like the standard ending, and like, at the end, Dan's just like, okay, let's go back to the beginning and just.
Oh yeah. At the very end of the playthrough, he's like, "This isn't how I want this to end." And so he beats the game, and then he goes to the very beginning and just has the first dude like choke him. He's like, "There we go, sweet death," something like that. Like without going through all the turmoil and like turning into a blob and like falling into like the dead pig pit and all the worms and everything. Hey guys, you think that's it?
Yeah, but
Think we've covered everything?
and there's one more thing.
Oh, okay.
And it's good news. Playdead is developing another video game, which is going to be nearly the same as Inside.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Why?
Because they just did Inside. Why?
Why not?
Well,
It's good.
No, it's outside. That's all.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
like
Is it the continuing adventures of Blob?
The Adventure of
Oh,
Bob. The boy of this Bob.
Actually, Flesh Katamari. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Rolling
I
through,
played that.
I wish I could walk.
It's the same exact game, you're just a Blob.
Yeah. Smashing stuff.
It's a much shorter game.
Yeah.
You just like flop on everything.
And you can
That's much
fly.
more fun. Oh yeah.
Let's see. We talked about this a little bit before everybody got here, but we listened to the soundtrack at the beginning. The music is the composer that I think also worked on Limbo, but for this one he decided to create the ambient work by using bone conductivity and putting all the sound through a human skull.
What?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So yeah, it was like Martin Stig
A
Anderson.
human skull.
Returned from Limbo, Anderson was inspired by 1980s V horror films, often used synthesizers, but not one to compose an actual soundtrack. Instead, he created music by routing sound through human skull and recording the result. The bone-conducting sound that created the somber, chill quality that often complements Inside's visuals.
Like a real human skull.
Real-
Not like
I guess
a
so.
plastic one that you
It has to
buy.
be real.
It's bone-chillingly good.
And this is the huddle, and this is what was one of the basically the first pieces of art that kind of the game like worked itself around.
Wow.
So it's interesting to think that like it wasn't like let's come up with a twist. It was more like let's come up with a game around to becoming a blob eventually. Yeah.
What's
Let-
that heart-like almost?
Hmm?
Yeah, like a human
What is
heart.
that in fiction? Like a blob of people. What is that? We've seen that before. There's Clive Barker has a short story about like this giant group of people that make it a giant, but it's made of little people or just regular people.
Well, just like, I mean, it's very, that whole thing of like, very Frankenstein, or
Yeah.
Golem, or...
There's this great one called The Human Centipede.
I was gonna
Oh yeah,
You
it's
just
one of the
had
classics.
to go there. You just had to go there.
Criterion Collection.
It's a Lovecraft short story that has a
And it's not. Is it made of people or?
It's like eyes. I don't know.
Uh,
That's a Goosebumps one. It's a blob.
There's some like 80s V horror movie where like all the rich people like have an orgy at the end and they like all meld together. I can't remember what that was.
I have to be in Facebook to get in. All right, I'm going in.
No, I think the world would be a much better place if all the rich people just got together and formed just one unintelligible blob.
You wouldn't say that if you were rich.
I can tell you right now, that is not going to happen in my lifetime.
And then we elected the blonde president.
At least he's more competent and less destructive.
Yeah, so
How do you pronounce this game?
so next month, this is what won the poll. I don't know anything about it, but Joe Salina, who is I think he's probably the person, the longest running current active member of Babycastles.
Big Babycastles guy, yeah.
Yeah, was like, I love this game. I want to talk about this game. So I was like, all right, like it looks like people are into it. Go for it. So so Joe's gonna lead next month's Game of the Month Club.
Do we know anything about this game? I don't know. Like,
Yeah, it's been in development for several years. People know about it, and it's also a sequel.
Yeah, do you have to play the other ones?
No, I think the sequel is like terrible.
Okay.
The prequels?
The first one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
So yeah, do you want to give us a thing because Joe's not here and I don't know anything.
Oh, that's all I know is like the first one was like got a pretty bad review, and for whatever reason they made this one, and it has nothing to do with the first one.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, why?
But-
Also, I think there's also a blob in this one, except
It could be the thing.
What's the buzz around it? It looked at a glance, I thought it was like a Final Fantasy thing. It's
I mean,
Is it an RPG?
You know, it's an action RPG, like with really good fighting mechanics that actually work.
It's an action RPG.
The trailer.
Yeah.
Should we watch a trailer?
Yeah, let's do a trailer.
Okay. I'm gonna stop the stream, which might be taking up my whole hard drive at this point because I decided to record it locally. All right, people on the internet, I'll see you later.